And I think that's why your show is doing so well, because you got the courage to put the truth out there, which I admire. So yeah, things are looking a lot better than they were. That is for sure.
I think you had mentioned that under Obama, Project Mockingbird.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
And it does seem like more and more there is, again, more people who are kind of on this journey, this search for truth, the untold side of history, what the media doesn't cover. It just seems like the movement is ever growing, and I love to see it. As somebody who's kind of been on this search for truth for, I'll be honest, the better part of almost 15 years, guys. I'm 27 years old, about to be 28 next year. I was looking up Illuminati videos on YouTube in middle school, like why artists were throwing up the triangle over their left eye. You know, I was always into this kind of stuff. So it is refreshing to see the movement, or just people kind of looking for the truth, people kind of looking for what kind of goes on behind the scenes, what some of this subliminal messaging is, again, what the media doesn't tell us, or what the lies and what they are telling us are. It is refreshing to see this movement kind of gaining popularity.
I guess just elaborate on what you were telling me about that before.
Well, Project Mockingbird, they alleged that went away
It's
in
all good.
1976 when George H.W. Bush,
Young and
who, by the way,
informed,
was a
young and
longtime
informed.
CIA operative, which he covered up. George H.W. Bush, they put him as director of the CIA intentionally, and he came out and gave a news conference when Mockingbird was busted by the Church Committee. Bush came out and did a news conference saying, well, this is an official statement. The CIA will no longer pay journalists to plant stories in papers. But then people missed the last part of his statement. From now on, it will just be voluntary. The CIA has a whole lot of ways to make something voluntary.
Let's get the likes up, guys. We got over 150 of y'all in here. We appreciate the support, but go ahead and drop a like for your boy. It's free. Double tap the screen. I'll demonstrate here. Just do one of these for your boy. Double tap the screen, or you get the 3 buttons in the upper right-hand corner. Let's increase the conversation, engage, or expand the discourse. And the best way to do that is to like the video, guys. Let's get it pushed in the algorithm. Get some more folks in on the conversation, and let's make it a fire stream.
Appreciate a necessity. So it continues. It continues today. And a good example of that is the Total Information Awareness Program, where AP, UPI, Washington Post, Google, Facebook, especially Google and Facebook, signed an agreement with the CIA to censor certain information that the government didn't want out there. Literally signed off with the CIA for propaganda to the U.S. people. So it is in full swing. It never went away. Now it's just voluntary, and they have ways of making that happen.
When was that signed?
That was 1976.
Wow.
Before the cameras, and everybody missed that last part.
Actually, it was super interesting. I don't know if you saw this recently, but Jeff Bezos did something that I think required a tremendous amount of humility, or maybe these were marching orders.
And shout out guest dude. He makes a great point with that. Let me pull that up for you guys so you can see that. Hopefully you guys are liking the stream, man. If so, go ahead and drop a like for your boy. Double tap that screen, man. Shout out guest dude. He says, you're never ex-retired CIA. Active glowworm. Yeah, facts. That's why they run so much extensive background checks on you before you get in. Like, they research your whole history. They interview people you used to go to school with. They dig up everything they can find, everything you've ever done, every footprint you've ever taken, almost, because once you're in for life. Exactly. There is no retired. There is no I used to work. Nah, you're pretty much tied in for life when you get down with these intelligence agencies, the CIA specifically here. And shout out Big Wave Dave 82, $10. He says, Key, I'm gonna find a good video interlude. Whoa! Oh, dog. He trying to get the channel canceled. Big Wave Dave. God damn, Dave. I don't know if we can take it that far, G. Matter of fact, I know we can't take it that far. G.
From the CIA, who knows? But he essentially wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post and said, look, we're not endorsing a candidate because no one believes us anymore. We're essentially just writing to ourselves. And I thought that really represented the collapse of the mainstream media, when even you have someone who owns a publication like the Washington Post saying, what are we even doing this for anymore? We're just keeping.
Obviously not no content, but even the theme song, bro, even the theme song is a little bit too racy. a little bit too racy.
Up appearances for ourselves.
Yeah. That was remarkable because the Washington Post has been the chief mockingbird since its inception. Matter of fact, they were part of the formation the Post was with Operation Mockingbird, and they've been the CIA's mouthpiece for decades.
Play nice.
And all of a sudden, this happens, and of course, a bunch of Washington Post journalists and editors walked out because they're so used to puppeting the government line, they left. And that Bezos did that is remarkable. I think he sees the writing on the wall. People are tired of that. They're fed up with false news, and he's a money man, he's a businessman, and he sees that the Post is hurting. So he came out and said that, and he's got a $600 million contract with the CIA for monitoring cloud activities.
Jeff Bezos?
Bezos does, which means he probably.
Let's go back on that. He has how much? How deep does that account?
And all of a sudden this happens. And of course, a bunch of Washington Post journalists and editors walked out because they're so used to puppeting the government line, they left. And that Bezos did that is remarkable. I think he sees the writing on the wall. People are tired of that. They're fed up with false news. And he's a money man, he's a businessman, and he sees that the Post is hurting. So he came out and said that. And he's got a $600 million contract with the CIA for monitoring cloud activities. So
Jeff Bezos?
Bezos does, which means he probably signed a CIA secrecy agreement, which is their weapon. So that makes it even more ironic that he would come out and cut the legs off their chief mockingbird, essentially. So yeah, that was something to watch.
Or that could be, like I said, because the CIA basically said to him, no one's reading this, no one believes it. So maybe just by writing this letter, people will then believe that what you put out next is definitely going to be not something that's from the deep state. I can't decide.
It wouldn't surprise me.
It wouldn't surprise me at all either. So actually, let's speak about the Washington Post, because I graduated, got a degree in journalism. Mm-hmm. And it's so funny now for me to go back to my early journalist training at university. And they always tell you can trust CNN. They basically instill in you the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, Christiana Omnipor. Like, this is who you are.
Ooh, Shoto. Hold on. Shout out guest dude. Let's see here. He said $2. CIA doesn't have whistleblowers either. Expound on that. Elaborate, my friend. What exactly do you mean? Do you mean that he's, again, an active glowworm and he's operating on their behalf, kind of coming out and exposing a little bit? Maybe he's exposing some things that they don't mind us knowing about, while taking attention away from some of the stuff that they don't even want us researching into. That could be interpreted a few ways, my friend. Shout outs, guest dude, but elaborate on that. I care to hear your elaboration.
Want to be like, if you become a successful journalist, these are the people that tell the truth.
Oh, and shout out Big Wave Dave. He says $5. He says, okay, sent and found on your time key. No worries. I got you, bro. Go ahead and cue that up.
Truth. And of course, what we learn about is the Watergate scandal. And this is what made the Washington Post the Washington Post. Mm-hmm. Deep Throat and this mm-hmm. person who we never knew who it was that was giving information mm-hmm. that ultimately led to Nixon's resignation. Mm-hmm. Let's speak about President Nixon, because I'm starting to think a lot differently about that now.
Yes, we have an entire chapter in our book on Bob Woodward, who I consider the chief mockingbird. When I came out with my story to blow the whistle on what the agency had done when my family was poisoned and the house was broken into and they painted chemicals on the ceiling, I contacted a reporter who was going to meetings with former agency people. And so I called him and he took the story, but he kept putting me off for 30 days. We went back and forth. And I said, are you going to publish this or not? He goes, well, what about this? And he kept asking me questions, the answer to which would be classified information, which means I could be wrapped up. So finally I said, why are you doing this? I'm not going to tell you anything classified. He goes, well, my editor, he's pressuring me to do it. And he was miserable. So that's why I'm not mentioning his name, because he was just an in-between. Well, guess who the Washington Post editor was? It was Bob Woodward. And it turns out the Washington Post went directly to the CIA and reported my contact and exactly what I told them. Turns out Bob Woodward was an intelligence community official connected to the CIA Naval Intelligence, going all the way back to the Nixon administration. He briefed Alexander Haig with top secret briefings.
As I suspected, guest dude. I just had to hear you confirm it. But yeah, shout out guest dude, $2 more. CIA topples nation states. All leaks are approved. Don't think we're getting anything juicy. Don't think we're getting the scoop. this is information that, again, they don't mind us knowing. He's leaking. It's not even necessarily a leak. He's giving us the crumbs. He's giving us the excess, the stuff that they really, the fat that they've cut off of the real juicy stuff. This is peanuts. This doesn't really mean anything. This doesn't compromise any operations that they currently have going on. Again, this is an operation. They have people who go out in media, go out in platforms, go out on podcasts, and expose the CIA, leak this, whistleblow for the CIA. But again, shout out Guest Dude. There are no whistleblowers. This is stuff they don't mind us knowing. The real juicy stuff, we won't know about that for some time, maybe, if ever. Think about it. The JFK files are still haven't been approved for public consumption, or what's the term? Haven't been declassified. Excuse me.
And he and Haig worked together as a kind of behind-the-scenes coup to get rid of Richard Nixon. Now, that may sound crazy, but we have the documentation in Twilight of the Shadow Government to prove that was a coup against Richard Nixon, and that Bob Woodward himself was involved in that. And I remember when we were on the 7th floor, when we were protecting CIA Director William Casey, Woodward would come and visit all the time. And William Casey hated the press, except for Bob Woodward. And he'd always clear him right in, and they'd go behind closed door meetings, and we were all like, what the heck? Well, it turns out Bob Woodward, with some of the information Casey gave him, publishes Veil, The Secret Wars of the CIA. And in that book,
hey, and shout out you guys. We got over 100 you guys still in here rocking with the stream, man. We really still just getting started, guys. S.E.T Key Media, go ahead and support the stream. Double tap that screen for me. You could also hit the 3 buttons in the upper right-hand corner and support the goal. We'll open up the call-in lines. It'll be a good time. We had Don's on here last night. We had him call in. He reacted to some videos with us live. It was a good time. We'll go ahead and run that back for you guys. Support the stream. Help us reach the goal. We'll open up the call-ins. Shout out Big Wave Dave 82, $5. Key, I hope after January 20th, we get told everything. Man, with the CIA director that's coming in, you'd hope so. You'd hope so. I'm not gonna lie. I'm optimistic, bro. I really have a lot of optimism in me. I want to see how this Trump administration and the cabinet kind of go about their business. I have a lot of hope. I'll say that. Shout out Guest Dude, $5. Snowden leaked, quote unquote, leaked NSA secrets about us being actively being spied on by 2008 era phones. Excuse me. We still blink, and wink are with our phones. Blink and wink. Well, fuck it. Shit and wink with our phones in 2024. We still shit and wink with our phones in 2024. Yeah. Honestly, I mean, nobody really heeded his warning. I mean, and I think most people kind of already knew, like, yeah, a lot of this location and services, camera approval for, bro, you literally have to give your phone approval for them to track your location and usage amongst other apps. These are not only spy devices, but they also mine our data and our user patterns. Like, everything about it is almost being observed. Nothing.
He says that he was able to get into Bill Casey's hospital room when he was terminally ill and get him to admit to his involvement in the Iran-Contra affair, which was a felony, basically. Well, that's a complete fabrication. I was one of the agents that occupied the hot seat outside of Casey's room. Woodward did try to get in, and the agents gracefully caught him and showed him the exit, and he never came back. Plus, the brain tumor had affected Casey's brain, especially the area of speech, so he couldn't even talk. So that's complete fabrication. Woodward has concealed all of his intelligence community jobs and positions that he had going back to Alexander Haig. He's concealed all of that. He makes it look like he came into the Washington Post, and then within 6 months, he gets Watergate, and he gets a direct connection to the then deputy director of the FBI, who turns out to be Deep Throat and was disgruntled and just started feeding Woodward information right off the bat. Why him? Well, everybody knew that he had a clearance and he had connections to U.S. intelligence. So we have an entire piece referenced and documented on Bob Woodward as as the poster child of Mockingbird, and it goes all the way back to there.
So what you're essentially alleging then, and this is very much what I've come to understand, it makes me still feel so foolish as a student to believe these almost like Hollywood production type stories. A brave journalist running to get the information out, standing up against the deep state. They are the fourth estate. It's like, no, they are the deep state.
That's right.
What you're alleging then is that what happened is a coup was executed against a duly elected president of the United States.
Yes, and I think we pretty much proved that in the book with documentation. Yeah.
And then, of course, people listening to this are going to be going, wait, but as soon as Donald Trump got into office, the first time, Bob Woodward was the guy that was writing a book about Donald Trump. And just a few days ago, Donald Trump issued a statement against Bob Woodward saying that that Bob Woodward was writing another book and lying about clearances that he never had and access to the administration that he didn't have. That would suggest to people that perhaps the state is going after Donald Trump in the same manner.
What was Woodward's most recent book, Fear? And of course, it's always negative about Donald Trump because he's a mockingbird. And the CIA specifically hates Donald Trump because he's rattling their cage. And the CIA will do anything, and I mean anything, to survive, self-perpetuate itself. So he went after Trump in his book, and he is now a well-known fabricator. I don't think you can read any of Bob Woodward's book and believe everything that's in there. Now, the one exception is Bill Casey leaked classified information. Selectively to Woodward in the book Veil, because Casey wanted that out to the American public. And that Woodward took that. What he does is he takes things and makes himself look legitimate, and then he puts a lie in there. That's his MO. And he did that in his recent book, Fear. But it's always against anyone that challenges the intelligence community or the national security state. It's always an attack on that. And of course, Donald Trump.
Yeah. It's actually really interesting because Tulsi Gabbard being announced, it seems to have rattled the cages of the deep state.
Sure has.
For me, the marker of that is I view Nikki Haley to be just an entire deep state clone. She's always talking about war, war, war. Let's go to war with Iran. Let's go to war with everyone. And she really came out against Tulsi Gabbard in a huge way.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting because everything she was saying sounded to me like, this makes me like Tulsi Gabbard more. She's like, Tulsi Gabbard thinks that Julian Assange should be pardoned and Edward Snowden should be pardoned. And I'm going, do you understand what you're actually saying to the American people? Is that people that reveal information about the deep state should essentially be tried and life in prison, and she calls this protecting our interests.
And Nikki's been connected to the military-industrial complex for years. She's a deep stater from the word go. Obviously, Trump knows that, the team knows that, and that's why she doesn't have any position. But you got to admire the poetic justice, because they had Tulsi Gabbard on a terrorist watch list. They were following her wherever she went for no reason other than her opinions on Ukraine and other things. And now all of a sudden she's in charge of them as over DHS. I mean, you gotta love that. And that's the kind of thing we need, is people from the outside like that, especially people that have been attacked by the shadow government deep state, that are now going back in to really clean some house. First time in my entire career I've seen this actually possible. And somebody pinch me and wake me up, because I think I'm dreaming. But it's going to be a battle from now on, getting rid of these deep staters, especially in the CIA and their bureaucrats. It's going to be a war. So we should be excited, but at the same time, really concerned, and keep our eye on these people, because they're going to try to stop this.
Right. And I do believe that some people around Trump are obviously deep state plants, because the fact that Mike Pompeo's name was actually being floated. Yeah. And that was real. I know people in his inner circle, they were shocked that people were trying to push him. And these are the people that gave tons of money to his campaign and trying to push him. Could you imagine, to name Mike Pompeo? Could you get anybody that is more of a deep state plant than Mike Pompeo? He is not even a plant, he is the deep state.
Well, yeah, it's funny, because when he was first appointed to the CIA, I remember I turned to my wife and I said, if he's an honest man, he will not be there for long. they're going to turn him. Well, what did Pompeo do? And he ruined his political career. He put an assassination order out for Julian Assange. And then he called Tucker Carlson and threatened him with arrest for talking about the Assange case. This is Mike Pompeo. He either was already deep state. The CIA has a wonderful way of turning people when they get in there. Trust me, I know. And the upper 20% of the CIA, they do not believe in democracy. They do not believe in the U.S. Constitution. They believe in the CIA and its global juggernaut staying in control and perpetuating itself. That's all they believe in. And some of them, and I've worked for some, they're basically psychotic. They're narcissists. And so Pompeo got in there, and whether he was coerced into doing that by Gina Haspel, who is a shadow government deep stater from the word go. She's the one that destroyed the torture tapes, videotapes. And it wasn't just waterboarding, it was worse. John Brennan was operating through Deputy Director Haspel against Pompeo when Pompeo was director. And so the under bureaucracy in the upper levels of the CIA was working against Pompeo while he was there. That's going to happen again. If Ratcliffe takes over, he's going to need a team of defense people in the administration behind him because they're going to try to put their steely knives in his back. And he absolutely needs to appoint the right deputy director underneath him that will go with the reforms that the administration has ordered him to do. Because if that's not the case, then the DDCI will undermine him. They have a whole global monstrous network to protect, and much of it illegal and criminal, including drug running and other things that they don't want coming out. So you bring a reformer like Ratcliffe in, you better be careful, and you better have outsiders come in to support him, the chief operating officer and others, that will make sure that bureaucracy doesn't try to undermine the new director.
All right, interrupting this conversation briefly to remind you all about Goldco, because we're all wondering what they have in store for President-elect Donald Trump. Are they going to crash the economy before he gets into office? Are they going to kick off World War III? I really don't know what they're up to, but I'm also not waiting around to find out. And I don't think that you should be either, which is why you should go to CandiceLikesGold.com to learn about my partners over at Goldco. They are the precious metals company that I trust. They're top rated. They haven't. They go in because we is go to Candice. Okay, on the topic of turning people once they go in, because we have seen this happen so many times. Good guys gone bad. What are their mechanisms for doing that? I've heard people are fearful that they'll drop kiddie porn on their laptops, or maybe they find a family member and there's some really a blackmail operation. Mm-hmm. What happens?
Well, I mean, if you humbly look at my case, they tried to erase me by placing me and sadly my family as collateral damage in a very badly poisoned house that had mycotoxins leaking out of the ceiling. Now, mycotoxins are what Saddam Hussein used on the troops, called yellow rain. It's a very deadly neurotoxin. And I found it only shows up under a black light. And as this was all happening and my family was deathly ill, I hit the ceiling and I found these mycotoxins. And of course, later, while we were out of the house, they broke in and I hit it again. And there's big brushstrokes of some chemical that was invisible. They painted over it. So, they have every way to try to get rid of you. And then there's the secrecy agreement, which is their weapon. Anybody, for example, MK Ultra, people involved in that, if they've signed a CIA secrecy agreement, they will sit them down and they will say, this is what you signed and agreed to. If you reveal anything classified, whether you like it or not, you're going to be charged and you're going to go to prison. And that's the weapon of fear. They tried to use that on me. Didn't work because I answer to a higher authority. But they've used it down through the years to silence people from coming out with some of these perverse and illegal operations.
So essentially, the people just value their freedom, and they just go, okay, I'm just going to play along with the deep state.
Yeah, and a lot of these people people go in and they have families to support. It's their health insurance, it's their retirement, you know, and if they don't play by the rules, they lose all of that and they're financially destroyed, which they of course tried to do to me also. And they have an entire procedure they've developed over the last 40 years, since Gary Webb, even if you know the story of Gary Webb. They destroyed his career, ruined his journalistic career. He's lost his marriage, his finances, and then wound up in a hotel room with 2 bullets in his head because he reported on CIA drug running. And he wrote the book Dark Alliance. That is a classic case of how the CIA will, their most favorite form of assassination is pushing someone to suicide. And then that gives them the doctrine of plausible deniability. And that comes from National Security Council Directive 10-2 in 1948, where the CIA can do anything it wants: sabotage, subversion, economic warfare, assassination. It can do anything it wants as long as there's plausible denial for the U.S. government. They can deny any involvement. The CIA can do anything it wants. Now imagine that with their 39 billion plus budget and the power of secrecy they have, the things that they have done and are doing are unconscionable.
Let's talk about Julian Assange, because it has been reported many times. Tucker Carlson said this many times that Mike Pompeo did call for his assassination, which is just shocking to hear that.
Shocking. Yeah.
What is it about Julian Assange that motivated them? I mean, obviously, WikiLeaks, you created WikiLeaks, you had all these documents. What was in the documents that you think caused the deepest fear for the deep state?
Well, the deepest fear, of course, was the emails that he revealed between the Department of State and other officials and some of the dirty deeds that they were doing. And of course, there's the videotape of them killing those innocent people, 2 of which were reporters and photographers. What the CIA fears is exposure. And Julian Assange was starting to expose the whole thing, and which jeopardizes the CIA's existence, which it will, as I mentioned, will do anything to keep from happening. So Julian Assange is public enemy number 1 because he challenges the system of secrecy, and that's where their power is. That's why he's such a hero, frankly. That's why people love him so much, because he stood up in their face and he said, this is what you're doing. And he showed everybody just the tip of the iceberg, really, what they're doing. And they will not have that.
It is shocking that there are people who still believe, and obviously I think now it's a smaller fraction of people than it was before, but who genuinely believe that there is not propaganda in the West, and that they're educated when they read the New York Times, and they are educated about issues, you know, historical and present, because they're reading the Washington Post, and they're a part of this sort of elite people who know not to give in to misinformation and disinformation. And even the overusage of those terms, obviously, to me feels just like a Project Mockingbird, you know, conspiracy theorists and things of that nature. And it's like, how much information could there be out there before these people are willing to accept that your government is lying about virtually everything?
Virtually everything.
Virtually everything. And a small group of elites run the entire world, in my viewpoint.
Yeah. Yes. And even Pompeo said, he told Bobby Kennedy's a friend of mine. And as a matter of fact, Bobby was kind of encouraged me to write this book. Pompeo told Bobby Kennedy, after he came out, he regretted not doing the reforms that the CIA needed. Well, not only did he not do them, he instigated and carried out an assassination program. So between the editors of these major news networks, especially CNN, MSNBC, and even some conservative news networks, where
there we go.
as long as they do not do any investigation of the CIA, and report anything negative about the CIA will leave them alone, and they'll actually feed them stories from anonymous sources, feed them stories so they'll be the first ones to break it. The moment that any outlet really does an investigation of the CIA, that is cut off immediately, and the agency starts putting out disinformation about that network. And any journalist like Gary Webb who dares to investigate the CIA, they'll be fired, their career will be ruined, and they all know it. And when you think about it, when's the last time you saw any...
All right, goddamn it, man. I apologize, y'all. I appreciate y'all's patience on that. That was a doozy. Goddamn. So what I was trying to explain for the last damn near half an hour was that the mic shut off on me. I restarted everything in the browser. I restarted the dock that everything's plugged up into. Guys, I know I'm not that technically savvy, but I'm not a dumbass when it comes to this shit. Most issues can be fixed just by restarting shit, and I tried all that. So it wasn't really working. I don't know why, but for the fifth time when S.E.T came and restarted the browser, it just so happened to reconnect. But it was an issue with StreamYard and not our actual mic. But goddamn, appreciate y'all's patience on that. That was about to lose me some hair follicles.
Major mainstream media news outlet do a serious investigation of the CIA.
Big Wave. I gotta read out all y'all super chats too, man. Y'all was snapping while my mic was muted. Y'all were saying some crazy shit, man. Big Wave Dave. He said, damn it, the mic, you all owe me money at this point. You're muted. Shout out Hellbat. He said, freaks in Discord. Plus, there's a song for you. All right, I'll pull that up. Dave, I got your musical suggestion as well. Your musical interlude. New Max again. Did you pay your cable bill? I'm about to be mean about it. I know about black people time, but is there such a thing about black people bill pay time? Yo, you're wilding. Bring yourself full screen. Your mic has no full power. Yeah, it was cutting in and out. That was part of the partially the issue. Tell S.E.T to stop picking the outlets. You all need me. Guest dude, shout out, slapping and tell us it's a good girl. That was hilarious. Guest dude, look, it is a rush away. Slap it, twist it, bop it. Kind of sounds like a game of bop it, literally. Shout out Don's, pull its hair like Hunter does when they act up. Guest dude, if the old slap and tickle fails, sock it to her. Hellback, you might have to without the face cam this stream and see if that helps. Yeah, I thought about that. That's why I kind of just queued the video back up. Vladstein, show that Mike who's daddy. Don ain't had too much to say, just wanted to show some support. Guest dude, now slap her and call her a good girl. Hellbat 12, sure, I believe you for now. And Steph Troutman, I think goal has been made. Call in. Yeah, we can open up the call-in lines just because honestly that was crazy. I don't know why the hell that just happened like that.
CIA, maybe never. Well, there's a reason for that. They know that their survival and their career depends on not doing that, and that's why the new programs, yours and others, they didn't count on people like you and me coming out and saying this is what they're doing, and now with new news programs, they're freaking out.
Yeah, they are. And you can see they're starting to have that conversation about podcasting and misinformation and how are we going to get a wrangle on this. And but I think it's just going to be very difficult for them, especially within America, because too many people are awake now. And what we've been able to prove is they will find that information. They'll go around. If you ban me from YouTube, they're going to find me on Spotify. You ban me from Spotify, they'll find me on Apple. So one of the things that we got a lot of people asking me to ask you about was Benghazi. Now, before we get there, and you guys, please just allow me to get through this, I do want to read this to my audience. I'm going to skim through it, but it was a speech that Muammar Gaddafi gave. It was at the 64th UN General Assembly in 2009. Major piece of my own awakening, having read this and realized suddenly that I have no idea what the hell our government is ever doing overseas, and virtually everything they've told us has been a lie. So I'm going to get through this, skim through this speech, get him.
Shout out Mike G, $2. He said, let's just blame Biden on this one. Might as well. Biden or Biden? Oh, okay. All right. I got you. I figured that's what you meant, bro.
His reaction on it, and then we're going to kind of go through everything that Muammar.
What type of fetish shit? Like, I'm about to call Mike. I'm about to be like, what the hell?
Gaddafi brings up. Now, I want to be very clear here. I don't agree with everything in the speech. Actually, this speech, I think, really is more questions than answers. And just to kind of put it in context for you guys listening, essentially, he's standing up before the General Assembly in 2009, and just saying, why are we pretending that the United Nations is about giving all of the nations equal power when really we know that just a few nations have any power here? And it's the UK and it's the United States and it's Israel, and everyone else is kind of just playing pretend. Okay, so we start speaking about just the UN Charter in general. The preamble of the Charter states that armed force shall not be used save in common interest. That is the preamble that we agree.
And before we fully get into that preamble here, shout out the musical interlude. Shout out Big Wave Dave, man. We appreciate you guys. Big Wave Dave, musical suggestion here, song suggestion. Shout out the musical interludes of the show. Y'all seem to like these. I enjoy them myself. I'm not going to lie.